First QQ reading, through Douluo, Ning Shu has become a despised figure in Shrek Academy. Good guy. Ning Shu said. Join the martial soul hall now. Little did she know that when she walked over, she was also bound by an unscrupulous gravitational force, and she couldn't leave on her own. Ning Shu said. Don't panic, anyway, it's all over the world. Being kicked out is not an easy thing. When encountering a man, be angry, pretending, when encountering a woman, be pretending. Facing Dai Mubai, brother Mubai, I really like you. Pooh. A scumbag, abandoning his fiancée AE, should end his old age alone. Facing Ning Rong, it's only right for the older sister to give way to the younger sister. Hee, spoiled young lady, I see if you can still laugh when the Seven Treasures glass sect becomes cannon fodder. Facing Xiaowu, you're right. Your third brother is pure and pure. 100,000-year-old soft bone rabbit, silly love comes and goes, they are playing with your soul ring and soul bone idea. You should be happy, and you will cry in the future. But who can tell her, fighting and drinking tea, why did everyone ultimately rely on her not to leave, and why did those people from the Martial Soul Hall also seem to hold her in their palms? P.S. Pure Martial Soul Hall stance. Keywords of the novel. Douluo. After my inner voice was exposed, I was forced to become a group pet without a pop-up window. Douluo. After my inner voice was exposed, I was forced to become a group pet and download the complete TXT collection. Douluo. After my inner voice was exposed, I was forced to become a group pet and read the latest chapter. Chapter 1. Squirrel, I'm going on a long voyage today. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1 Squirrel, I'm going on a long voyage today. Before Ning Shu could react from her suffocation, she heard a fierce scolding in her ear. Ning Shu. If you continue to be so restless, get out of Shrek Academy next time. People like you who are self-centered and constantly tinkering with friends are not welcome here. Cough cough cough. What kind of thing? What Shrek College? Is she dreaming? Difficultly opening her eyes, Ning Shu saw an angry yellow nobleman with short hair in his eyes. The boy was wet all over, like a drowned rat. Alright, boss Dai, stop talking. The dean wants you and Ning Shu to go to the office. Standing next to the yellow-haired boy was a black short-haired boy who looked a bit familiar, but Ning Shu's mind was still wandering in chaos at the moment, and there was really no extra space to consider these two boys. Got it, Ning Rong, why don't you help your sister to the office? The boy with yellow hair ordered towards the girl next to Ning Shu. The girl was very impatient and said, I know, don't shout. Who wants to help her? The murmuring sound reached Ning Shu's ears, and then she was suddenly pulled up, still feeling confused. On the way to the dean's office, a pile of memories suddenly came to Ning Shu's mind. Good guy, she has traveled through time. Wearing Douluo continent, she became Ning Rong's cousin, Ning Shu. This Ning Shu is not capable of anything except for her high talent. He has a bad temper, disliked by his sect members, disliked by the Shrek 7 monsters, and even disliked by his own father and uncle. It's like living a life that everyone hates. Absolutely. This is the word Ning Shu wants to say the most. In Shrek Academy, the original owner always did some self-harm or framing in order to gain attention, and he didn't know where his brain was twitching. He only competed with Shrek Academy and was a pure craftsman. With his quick attitude of admitting mistakes, money, and exceptional talent, he was not expelled from Shrek Academy even if there were some minor frictions. The most serious thing at once is just a warning, after all, they are all insignificant matters that cannot be brought to the forefront. This time, in order to make Dai Mubai pay more attention to himself, the original owner intentionally jumped into the river to ask him to come and save him. However, Dai Mubai watched on the shore for a while, but only when there was really no movement in the river did he jump down to save him. Waiting for someone to be rescued, the original owner had already hiccuped, and then she came. As an anime player who likes Wu Soul Hall, Ning Shu doesn't want to be with Tang-san at all. Her only longing is for the martial Soul Hall. As for why? Perhaps it is because she personally believes that Tang-san is too double-standard, pretending to be just while doing villainous things, which really makes her dislike it. So, she wants to join the martial Soul Hall. She wants to carry away Qianren Snow, Qiandao Flow, and those few offerings. After all, isn't lying in the pile of villains as a rice worm more fragrant than being disliked by the righteous here? But now there is a very bad news, she is bound to Shrek College. She can only truly leave the college if she is kicked out, otherwise, if she sneaks away on her own, she will be pulled back within 24 hours. Excuse me. Anyway, Ning Shu thinks it's quite ridiculous. Asterisk in the dean's office, in a dilapidated small house, Frand was standing solemnly with his hands down. Dai Mubai and Ning Shu entered one after another, and neither of them was as good as the other. Frand glanced at Dai Mubai and then at Ning Shu. What's going on this time? He asked coldly. Dean, it's Ning Shu. She has something to do and she can't bear to think about it. She wants to die. When Dai Mubai said these words, he couldn't help but glance at Ning Shu, his eyes filled with disgust. Ning Shu gave him a cold glance, and in an instant, she pitifully said, Dean, I didn't do it. I just accidentally fell into the water. How could I have been determined to die? My life is so precious. Dai Mubai heard this and felt extremely disgusted. Dean, look, she's like this again. She has a tendency to lie and just opens her mouth. This time, you absolutely can't let her go. You must drive her out. Upon hearing that she was about to be kicked out, Ning Shu couldn't contain her joy. However, on the surface, she still had to pretend to be uncomfortable and didn't want to leave. She thought about all the sad things in her life and tried hard to squeeze out a few tears. No, Dean. I don't want to leave. I really like Brother Mubai. Don't drive me out, I will be obedient and won't cause any trouble in the future. You must not drive me out. Hurry up and get me out of here, please, hurry up. I'm 1 minute, oh no, I don't want to stay here for a second anymore. Rat, I'm going on a long voyage today. Dai Mubai and Frand were shocked. Ning Shu. It is not difficult to hear how genuine the excitement in this voice is. Dai Mubai looked at Ning Shu in surprise, her eyes staring like copper bells. Frand was also surprised, but then regained his serious expression. Ning Shu, you told me the same thing last time. As a result, you still don't know how to repent. Do you think what you said has any credibility? Yeah. Why not? I can swear by my cousin Ning Rong. Ning Shu said decisively. Dai Mubai on the side immediately regained consciousness and swore someone else's oath. He hurriedly said, Dean, you see, she's just a selfish person. How could such a person stay in our college? No, we can't get rid of her. We must get rid of her. Dai Mubai, you are really my good brother. Hurry up, speak more and make sure the dean drives me out. The accommodation here is poor, the food is poor, and the people are not very good. Hurry up and kick me out. I will definitely burn a high incense for you. What? Dai Mubai was completely confused. Burn high incense. He's not dead yet. In an instant, he gave Ning Shu a glare. Frand couldn't figure it out either. Ning Shu, is there such a big opinion? Neither of them spoke, and as the atmosphere cooled down again, Ning Shu took advantage of the heat and cried and howled, Brother Mubai, I didn't mean to die. I really accidentally fell into the water. The sweet and coquettish voice made Dai Mubai feel goosebumps all over his body. Just as he was about to continue proposing to drive Ning Shu out of the college, his ear rang with Ning Shu's voice again. Hey hey. I've said that, can't I still disgust you? When I think about my future beautiful life as a rice worm, it's worth my disgusting words. Dai Mubai opened his mouth and didn't know what to say for a moment. He fell silent in an instant, his expression complex. Fran found it particularly interesting. He had long thought that Ning Shu was a strange child, but he didn't expect her annoying appearance to be faked. No wonder, no wonder. Dai Mubai didn't continue speaking, and Fran had no intention of making things difficult for Ning Shu. He mediated and said, Mubai, Shu didn't mean to do it this time. Don't argue with her. It's just a small matter. A man is a big man. What's the need to fuss over this? Hey, that's right, hey. Ning Shu suddenly widened her eyes. What kind of ghost? Aren't you saying you want to kick her out? Why did you suddenly change your mind? Dean, Dai Mubai hesitated and seemed to be planning to give up. What kind of expression was Fran giving him? Seeing this, Ning Shu quickly grabbed his arm and said tearfully, Brother Mubai, please leave me behind. I really don't want to leave. Hurry up and continue talking about my glorious deeds. I am just a rebellious and selfish person. Hurry up and drive me out. Dai Mubai's silence was deafening. Is there something wrong with this person? Dai Mubai's face turned pale with iron. Hurry up and scatter. He shook his hand, only to find that Ning Shu was holding him tightly. This strength didn't seem like a delicate little girl. I won't let go. Brother Mubai, you can't treat me like this, I don't want to leave. Ning Shu was immersed in her own world, and she suddenly pinched her flesh. The physical pain made her cry like rain. It was just a little bit of flesh pain, Ning Shu, you can hold it back mouse, I want to fly happily, are you sick, Ning Shu? Dai Mubai was both surprised and angry. He immediately took Ning Shu's hand away and glanced at the snow-white flesh that had been pinched red by her. I didn't say I let you go. Fran also noticed this, squinting at the two young boys and girls. Although he didn't know what kind of madness Ning Shu was going through today, he had to say that Ning Shu hadn't done anything too outrageous in the past few days. If she was kicked out for a small matter, it wouldn't be necessary. Besides, he had already collected money. As the saying goes, taking someone's money and helping others with disaster relief, who would have a hard day with money. Alright Mubai, Shu has been pleading so much. Don't argue with her anymore. It's just some small matters. Why do you have to argue with her? Is it okay to have a bit of grace? Fran suddenly inserted and stirred. Ning Shu gritted her teeth and glared fiercely at Fran. You four-eyed kid, hold your breath. End of this chapter. What do you think of Ning Shu in chapter 2? You are listening at novelfull.audio. The source has no content or has errors. Is chapter 3 about wanting her soul bones and soul rings? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Is chapter 3 about wanting her soul bones and soul rings? A few days later, Shrek College. Ringtones. Early in the morning, the gathering bell suddenly rang. Outside the room, a rustling sound came, and Ning Shu couldn't help but roll over in frustration. The accommodation conditions at Shrek College are not very good. To be precise, the girls' dormitory is just 3 small wooden houses, and the sound insulation effect is extremely poor. Amidst the sound of footsteps coming and going, as well as the hurried sound of washing up, Ning Shu completely regained consciousness. She lay in bed, feeling a bit unattainable. I don't even want to sleep well, what a broken college. Ah! She suddenly stood up and slapped the bed, creaking. The wooden bed shook. Ning Shu grabbed her hair helplessly and felt lost. She decided to wake up. The dean's gathering bell always rings irregularly, and Ning Shu has been tormented enough these days. At first, she thought that being late every day would make Fran kick her out. However, she didn't know that Fran only punished her and didn't do anything else. She didn't even bother to give a warning. After experiencing several days of torment, Ning Shu also knew that being laid alone was not enough. She had to step on the lightning accurately and jump in everyone's minefield with precision. Only in this way can she be truly despised by everyone, and be kicked out of the college, never to see again. After getting up and changing into a regular outfit, Ning Shu sat in front of the mirror and looked in the mirror. Although traveling is not a good thing, fortunately, she has a more satisfied face. In the mirror, her face was delicate and elegant, like a lotus in a cup, with a stunning and spiritual aura. Under her willow eyebrows, there were a pair of seductive eyes. The pupils of these eyes were pale purple, and within the purple, there was something like a vast star hidden. Her alluring bone was as natural as a wild rose. Her long black hair is tinged with purple. Although she and Ning Rongrong are cousins, they are not even similar, which makes Ning Shu feel whether the original owner is Ning Rongrong's cousin. After all, the cousins Yu Tianheng and Yu Tianxin in the original book look quite similar. But now is not the time to care about this either. Ning Shu picked up the wash basin and towel hanging beside her, and quickly went out to fetch hot water for washing. Although her movements were already fast, it still couldn't stop her from being late for the time limit, just because she slept for an extra 2 minutes. Everyone arrived, and Fran looked at the 8 of them. Except for Ning Shu, the other 7 were all bulging their chests and full of energy, seemingly accustomed to the life here. Fran nodded in satisfaction and said, "Today is still the same. Let's go to Soto City for a soul fight. Ning Rongrong and Oscar, you two run laps first, and the rest of you move your shins. After they finish running, we'll set off." "Yes, Dean." Everyone answered in unison, except for Ning Shu. After dissolution, Ning Rongrong and Oscar went to run circles honestly, Xiao Wu and Tang San stayed together, Zhu Zhuqing stood alone in a quiet corner, and Ma Hongjun followed Dai Mubai, looking at Ning Shu with a greedy expression on their faces. Ning Shu noticed that someone was looking at her and instinctively looked at Ma Hongjun. Ma Hongjun's expression was cheap and lewd, which made Ning Shu quite disgusted, and she quickly gave him a glare. "What are you looking at, grass chicken? Don't look at me with that kind of gaze, be careful, I'll gouge out your eyeballs." "What?" Everyone present was taken aback, especially Ma Hongjun. He opened his mouth and looked at Ning Shu with a bewildered expression. Ning Shu didn't even move her mouth just now, how could he hear her speak? And how did she know he was a chicken? Ah bah! What kind of chicken? He is clearly a phoenix. This little girl's words are really excessive. Ning Shu, if you have any opinions or abilities in your heart, speak up loudly. What are you staring at me for? You stare at me, and I look at you the same way. I want to look at you like this. What can you do with me? Ma Hongjun hugged his chest with both hands, lifted his chin, and looked like, what can you do with me? He looked particularly ungrateful. Dai Mubai, who was standing beside her, was no longer surprised by Ning Shu's feelings. He looked at her with a killing look, but his heart had always been filled with resentment towards what Ning Shu had said before. Ning Shu looked at Ma Hongjun and also raised her chin. Her height was quite outstanding among the crowd, except for Dai Mubai, who was taller than her, everyone else was shorter than her. Therefore, Ning Shu couldn't help but wonder if the original owner had grown up on hormones. Hee, if you like to see, let's see as you please. Anyway, I won't be the one without a wife in the future. Ning Shu rolled her eyes, but she confused Ma Hongjun. Wife. The rabbit Xiaowu beside her seemed to smell the scent of melons. She couldn't help but, oh, her mouth, and the rabbit's eyes were wide open. She whispered in surprise to Tang San beside her, brother, she won't be interested in chubby people, will she? Tang San pursed his lips and did not speak. He looked at Ning Shu and couldn't help but frown. Why can he hear Ning Shu's voice? Ning Shu didn't speak just now. And it seems like he's not the only one who can hear it. Tang San's gaze swept over everyone present, including Xiaowu, Dai Lauda, Zhu Qing, and Fatty, all of whom can hear it. What is this situation? Has there been a ghost? Ning Shu, you're too shameless. Ma Hongjun spoke frankly, but his cheeks turned red. Unexpectedly, Ning Shu likes him and even wants to be his wife. No wonder Boss Dai asked him that kind of question before, that's why. Ah. Without waiting for Ning Shu to reply, Ma Hongjun quickly fled the scene, leaving Ning Shu alone feeling inexplicable. Are you sick? She murmured. However, Ma Hongjun's departure is also a good thing, as it saves someone from looking at her with malicious eyes all the time. Ma Hongjun left, but the other few people looked at her with strange eyes. Ning Shu touched her face, but it was nothing. She and everyone exchanged a glance, and except for Xiaowu, everyone else withdrew their gaze. Ning Shu looked at Xiaowu and slowly made a question mark. Little rabbit, look at what I'm doing. I haven't even talked about you yet. The starry forest is not waiting for you, and you insist on running out to experience life. You think you're pretending well, but you've already been seen by people. Tang San's cheap father is a Douluo. What do you think you're not exposing yourself for? It's not just for his precious son's soul ring and bone, but it's waiting for you to willingly pay. What? Xiaowu is shocked. She instinctively looked at Tang San and saw that he had doubts in his eyes. She then looked at Dai Mubai and Zhu Zhuqing present and found that neither of them had any unusual expressions. Xiaowu finally calmed down. She looked warily at Ning Shu and thought to herself, how could she know that she was a soul beast with a history of 100,000 years? And, third brother's cheap dad. Ah bah, what a cheap dad. It's the father of the third brother. Surprisingly, is the father of the third brother titled Douluo. But isn't third brother saying that his father is just a blacksmith? What is Ning Shu really talking about? What awaits her selfless dedication? Is it true that third brother wants her soul ring and soul bone? End of this chapter. Chapter 4. The emergence of unscrupulous guiding voices. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. The emergence of unscrupulous guiding voices. A soul beast that has been around for 100,000 years, its brain is not lacking in intelligence. What Ning Shu said clearly meant that the soul beast offered sacrifices on its own, but Xiaowu couldn't figure it out. Why did Ning Shu, a soul master, discover that she was a soul beast with a history of 100,000 years, and why would she still know about the sacrifice? Who the hell is she? Is she also a soul beast? No, it's impossible. If it's a soul beast, how could she have no sense at all? Is Ning Shu a ferocious beast? Xiaowu's body trembled slightly, and Tang San noticed that the emotions of the people around him were not right. He quickly cared and said, Xiaowu, what's wrong? Xiaowu looked up at Tang San and suddenly felt a chill in her heart. It's nothing, brother. She turned her head to look at Ning Shu, her face extremely complicated. No, she must confirm Ning Shu's identity and also confirm what Ning Shu said. These words cannot be taken as not hearing, let alone as Ning Shu's joking words. A few hours later, Ning Rong and Oscar finished running the laps, and Frand rested for a while. He waited until it was almost dark before leading Shrek and the 8 of them on a trip. Their destination this time is the city of Soto, which is located within the Barak Kingdom and will not be threatened by any external forces. Therefore, the gates here are open 24/7, and a group of 8 people can enter the city smoothly. Although it is now dark, the city of Soto is still bustling, even worse than during the day. Ning Shu looked left and right. She was quite curious about this place. After all, it was her first time here. After walking for a few minutes, the group arrived at the sparkling orange light of the Soto Arena. Since they had already been here once before, the few people were very clear about the process and did not delay much. After Frand instructed them a few words, they let them in. As for him, Ning Shu and the others had no control over what he was going to do. The task assigned to them by Frand is to obtain the Silver Soul Emblem before graduation, and now their progress bar is still partly in Iron Soul and partly in Bronze Soul. Ning Shu was not surprised to be the Iron Fighting Soul Emblem player. After Frand left, she sneaked out alone, ready to go shopping. Who knew that just as she walked out of the Soto arena, a familiar male voice came from behind her. Ning Shu, what do you want to go for? The person who came was Dai Mubai. He noticed something was wrong with Ning Shu when he entered the city of Soto. He didn't expect to pay more attention, and as expected, he noticed the clues. At this time, Ning Shu didn't want to improve the level of the soul fighting badge, but instead left the soul fighting field. It was really difficult not to doubt. Ning Shu turned around and was slightly surprised by Dai Mubai's appearance, but then she smiled and pretended to be silly, coquettishly saying, "Brother Mubai, I don't think I have the strength to play games yet, so I want to replenish my energy." "What's wrong? Do you also want to go with me?" Dai Mubai's expression was very helpless. "Can you be normal? This is normal for me, you know, I like you." Ning Shu's expression was emotional, while Dai Mubai had no eyes to look at. "You, rat, I can't do it anymore. I'm a crispy young man, how can I withstand such a disgusting tone? No, run, run." Dai Mubai said, "Sister, can I hear you?" But this still didn't stop him from asking, "Ning Shu, tell me the truth, are you actually from the Tiando Empire?" "I am." Ning Shu answered. "Of course, I am from the Heavenly Do Empire. I come from the Seven Treasures Glass sect and am truly a Heavenly Do Empire person. Unlike you, I am a member of the imperial family of the Star Do Empire. The enemy prince dares to come to the Heavenly Do Empire alone, which is also commendable courage. I am not afraid of being beaten by others. Oh no. The imperial family of the Star Do Empire is fiercely contested, and you may be better off in the Heavenly Do Empire. However, it's true that you have abandoned your fiancée AE, which makes me look down on a bit. Even though you know the royal family's struggle is fierce, you still want to abandon her. Really, you should reflect on yourself." When it comes to the matter of the Star Empire again, Dai Mubai's gaze at Ning Shu is different. Ning Shu's knowledge is a bit too detailed. It can be said that Ning Shu is not a member of the Star Empire royal family, and he really can't imagine how Ning Shu knew so much. And Ning Shu's tone of dissatisfaction with him was about him abandoning his fiancée AE. She tried so hard to obstruct him from talking to Zhu Zhuqing and kept pestering him. Is it because of this? Dai Mubai realized. No wonder this guy is abnormal. It turned out that he misunderstood her meaning. Dai Mubai pondered for a moment before suddenly saying seriously, "Ning Shu, you're right. I really should reflect on myself." Ning Shu glared and said, "Ah. What kind of thing?" But Dai Mubai didn't say much to her. He turned around and walked into the Soto Battle Soul field, his back firm like a general. "Are you sick?" Ning Shu cursed in a low voice, inexplicably. She turned around and immediately changed her face, happily immersing herself in the bustling crowd of lights and neon lights. Soto City is much livelier at night than during the day, with vendors and servants coming out to be active. They set up small stalls, shout loudly, and occasionally snatch customers, which makes it particularly interesting. Ning Shu walked on the street, relying on the memories of the original owner to become familiar with Soto City. At that moment, a voice suddenly rang in her mind, "Go find it." This sound is very blurry, but also highly gravitational. Find it. What did you find? Ning Shu frowned slightly, somewhat puzzled. But her body was walking uncontrollably in one direction. Damn it. Ning Shu thought so. It wasn't until she stopped at a small stall that she realized her body was beginning to be under her control. Find it. Strange sounds reappeared. Ning Shu frowned and found it, but instead told her what to look for. Who knows if it's a person, an animal, or some other ghost. Danyao. That voice guided the way. Unconsciously, Ning Shu lowered her head and glanced at the several black small balls placed on the stall in front of her, unable to help but fall into contemplation. Isn't this a leg-stretching eyeball? What are you doing with this thing? Buy it and eat it. That voice rang out again. Ning Shu thought to herself, so much, do you want to poison me? However, the voice remained silent. Ning Shu wanted to leave, but she found that her body couldn't move. It seemed that she had to buy these pills in order for her body to move. Ning Shu was very helpless. She didn't know what the sound was, but it was probably the same breed as the thing that bound her to Shrek. I owe you a beating. Although Ning Shu was very unhappy with this compulsion, it was a bit uncomfortable to stand still and silent in front of the small stall. With no choice but to point to the dark pill, Ning Shu said, I'll take all of this, wrap it up for me. Ah. Little girl, do you know what this is? Just take it all. The vendor looked at Ning Shu with a skeptical expression, as if these pills were not good things. Ning Shu didn't care so much anymore. She just hurriedly said, do you want to sell it or not? If you want to sell it, wrap it up for me. She just wants to quickly return to normal. Sell. 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 The vendor even responded 3 times, but didn't pay attention to the situation. The girl's family didn't care anymore, he only cared about the chicken feathers. Pay with one hand and deliver with the other. Ning Shu feels sorry for her wallet. After the goods arrived in her hands, her body was able to move and was under her control. Damn it, don't let me catch who you are, otherwise I will definitely destroy you. Ning Shu muttered as she walked, so many leg-stretching eyeball pills, who should I give them to? At this moment, the voice rang out again, find a quiet place to absorb the pill with the bell mark. At this moment, Ning Shu just wanted to eliminate the voice in her mind. If there is a mark, I won't say it earlier, causing her to spend so much money in vain. At this moment of muttering, Ning Shu realized that her body was out of control again. She was driven forward by some force, and in a moment, she arrived at the bottom of a big tree. Having already experienced the power of this voice, Ning Shu didn't want to go against it anymore. She took out the pill from her pocket and found the black ball with the bell mark. Ugly is ugly, and if she didn't want to eat it, she really didn't want to, but this matter couldn't be refused by her. The pill was swallowed into her stomach, and Ning Shu felt a warm force appearing in her body. The force converged at her dantian and then dispersed, spreading throughout her body. She breathed in the cool breath of the night and felt something suddenly coming out of her right palm. At this moment, there was a rustling sound coming from the big tree, with a bang sound. Ning Shu felt a cool breeze blowing in front of her, but at this moment, she was meditating and absorbing it, unable to see who exactly appeared in front of her. All she knew was that the air suddenly became very cold, and she couldn't help but shiver, but heard a faint smile coming from her ear. I thought it was something, it turned out to be a little girl. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Light Feather. Grandpa. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Light Feather. Grandpa. Who is it? Ning Shu frowned, only to find that she couldn't open her eyes now. She only knew that the person who appeared in front of her was constantly spinning, as if the intimidating chill was emanating from this person. The power spread like a warm current to all her limbs, and the restlessness in Ning Shu's heart was washed away. She felt like she was in a world of emptiness now, her body light and floating, as if it would dissipate when the wind blew. This physical state did not last too long for Ning Shu. When the strength was completely absorbed by her body, a faint purple light suddenly flickered in the palm of her right hand. The person standing in front of Ning Shu couldn't help but wonder, what kind of martial soul is this? Zheng. Ning Shu suddenly opened her eyes, and a purple breath emanated from them. A force emanating from her shook the area for miles. The towering tree swayed incessantly, and the person who had just stood in front of her had already been impacted to a distance of 100 meters. Little girl, is your strength good enough to intimidate me? What kind of martial soul are you? The voice of the young man rang in Ning Shu's ear, and she realized that there was a handsome young man wearing a white coat and a gray cannon standing not far from her. The young man's eyebrows were like distant mountains, his eyes were like stars, and a slightly baby fat face would make people think he was just a young boy. However, in reality, the breath emanating from him was enough to make Ning Shu feel extremely suppressed. She looked at the young man and frowned slightly. Who are you? At this moment, she confirmed that the boy in front of her was the source that made her freeze. And due to Ning Shu's sudden burst of astonishing soul power attack just now, the young man released a part of his soul power to resist. It was also because of this part of his soul power that Ning Shu felt very suppressed. The young man looked at Ning Shu and raised his eyebrows lightly. My name is Guangling, little girl. You can call me Grandpa Guangling. Grandpa. Ning Shu was taken aback for a moment. So young. Well, Grandpa. Guangling responded and nodded affirmatively. Ning Shu gave a skeptical glance. Is he actually a grandfather despite being so young? Is it possible that he is a Douluo? Guangling squinted her eyes slightly. What did he hear? Does this little girl see that he is a titled Douluo? No, she didn't even open her mouth. How could he hear her speak? What's going on? Guangling pursed her lips and suddenly looked at the girl in front of her. Just now, he sensed a strong aura coming from here and thought he could find some heavenly and earthly treasures. However, upon closer inspection, it turned out to be a little girl. The scent on this little girl's body is indeed somewhat similar to the one he just sensed. It seems that he came a bit late. That day, the material and treasure should have been eaten by this little girl. It's a pity that he hasn't seen what it is yet. However, why can he hear this girl's voice? Is it because of that natural talent and treasure? Guangling can only think of this. However, on the other hand, this little girl actually knows the title Douluo and is probably also a soul master. After thinking for a moment, Guangling suddenly asked, Little girl, which sect's disciple are you from? Sect. I didn't join the sect, Ning Shu answered truthfully, still searching for this young man in her mind. Why doesn't she remember the title Douluo in the original book? If there really were Douluo with a title in Soto City, wouldn't Xiaowu have been caught long ago? Title Douluo is not just a cabbage on the street, it can be sold everywhere. Who exactly is this person? Here's an explanation, the female lead doesn't know about Guangling because she didn't see the anime behind her. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Do you want to recognize the old man as your grandfather? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Do you want to recognize the old man as your grandfather? Not a disciple of a sect. Guangling and Ning Shu looked at each other, and he could feel that Ning Shu had a strong sense of vigilance and prevention towards him. He lightly curled his lips and hummed, You little girl, looking at me like this makes me seem like a bad person. Upon hearing Guangling's words, Ning Shu quickly withdrew her gaze. Although she was curious about who this young man looked like, the power emanating from him just now should not be underestimated. If her thoughts were not wrong, he should have been titled Douluo. However, regardless of who he is, this matter is not important now. Seeing Ning Shu's mind wandering, Guangling wanted to hear her voice again. It was pleasant to hear what she was thinking in her heart at the moment, but he stared at Ning Shu for a long time, but never heard her speak. Is it possible that it was just a coincidence just now? Well, it's boring anymore. Guanling shook her head slightly disappointed and finally found an interesting person. The only result was the experience card, which was really boring and tight. He restrained the strong aura he had just emitted, then lowered his head to look at Ning Shu and asked, "Girl, what's your name?" "Ning Shu, my name is Ning Shu." The latter looked up, and the purple starry eyes appeared in Guanling's eyes without any cover. He paused for a moment, thought for a moment, and then asked, "What is your martial soul?" "Bell," Ning Shu replied again, her big eyes filled with pure emotions without impurities. Guanling nodded, indicating that she understood, what level of innate soul power. He continued to ask. Ning Shu looked at him and thought to herself, he didn't mean to kidnap me, did he? Guanling was taken aback for a moment. Did you hear me again? His eyes lit up and he suddenly became interested again. Interesting, really interesting. Guanling has always been more active and likes strange things, which is a fun thing that can hear people's voices. He is very interested in it. Little girl, what are you thinking? Guanling looked at Ning Shu with an extremely playful look. Ning Shu blinked, suddenly feeling that this person really had some ulterior motives towards her. She instinctively took a few steps back, and Guanling sensed her thoughts. He thought he couldn't scare away the fun people, so he took a few steps back and added, "Little girl, don't think too much. I just thought you had a connection with me, so I asked more questions. If you don't want to say anything, it's okay. I won't force you. Forcing you away, what else is there to be fun with me?" Guanling thinks so in her heart. The two of them distanced themselves, and Ning Shu didn't feel that the person in front of her was malicious towards her. She slowly let go of her guard and answered Guanling's question, "I have innate full soul power, level 10. Oh. Innate soul power." Guanling raised an eyebrow. A child with innate soul power who is not a disciple of a sect, how could their martial soul hall not know? "Which college are you studying at?" he continued, taking the opportunity. Ning Shu didn't hide it either. She replied, "Shrek College." "Sure, Lake." Guanling paused in the middle, and the name had a different meaning. Ning Shu nodded and said, Shrek College. Guanling remained silent for a moment. Where is Shrek College? Why didn't he know there was such a college? Ning Shu, have you ever thought about studying at a different college? The academy he has never heard of must be a grassroots academy. Such a child with a strong background should study at the Martial Soul Academy. With this idea in mind, Guanling wants to dig people. Sigh. As soon as she mentioned whether she wanted to switch to another college to study, Ning Shu couldn't help but let out a deep sigh. Thank you for your kindness, senior, but I haven't considered switching to another college yet. Apart from poor accommodation and poor food, everything else in this college is still okay. I think so, why not, but I think it's useless. They won't drive me, I can't leave. Saying you don't want to, but thinking in your heart. Guanling looked at Ning Shu. This little girl is really strange. It's okay if you don't want to, I won't make things difficult for you. However, Ning Shu, if you change your mind, you can take this token to the Martial Soul Palace Branch Hall to find a Platinum Sect leader inside. He will take you to a new college. Guanling took out a token from her arms and handed it to Ning Shu. On the token, there was a 6-winged angel martial soul vividly engraved. Ning Shu's mind suddenly froze as she looked at the token. Wait. What's this thing? This is the symbol of the 6-winged angel's martial soul. What did he say just now? He said the Martial Soul Hall. He's from the Martial Soul Hall. The excited and surprised voice of Ning Shu echoed in Guanling's ear, and he felt a tingling sensation in his eardrums. This girl, he frowned and instinctively pressed his ear screen, which made him feel a little more comfortable. Then, Ning Shu suddenly looked up and met him. Through their eyes, the two of them saw a newly formed emotion in each other's eyes. Ning Shu's eyes were full of longing, while Guangling's eyes were full of confusion. He is actually from the martial soul hall, Ning Shu roared in her heart. I actually saw the living people in the martial soul hall. Guanling paused, and the corners of her mouth couldn't help but twitch. This seems to be saying that there are no living people in their martial soul hall. What are you still waiting for? Don't you want it? Guanling gestured, and he weighed the token with his palm. Ning Shu nodded hastily, and in an instant, the token entered her arms. I want it. Unexpectedly, heaven favors me, this has made me encounter it. She chuckled in her heart, it seems that she has gained a lot of connections to the martial soul hall. Guanling listened to her silly smile and couldn't help but feel that the child was becoming more and more playful as she didn't show much emotion on her face. It's not the same on the outside, it's just her. Guanling smiled lightly, feeling as if he and Ning Shu were drawn together by some force. After thinking for a moment, he suddenly reached out and rubbed Ning Shu's head, saying, Xiao Ning Shu, I think I have a good connection with you. Do you want to recognize me as my grandfather? Grandpa. Ning Shu's eyes lit up and she quickly nodded, good, good. Anyway, she was kicked out by the Seven Treasures Glass sect, so it's not bad to recognize a grandfather from the martial soul hall outside. Moreover, if she really leaves Shrek Academy in the future, she will be given the title of Douluo Grandpa in the martial soul hall, which will also facilitate her entry into the martial soul hall. Beauty. It's so beautiful. It's just that, Ning Shu looked up with some confusion and said, Grandpa Guanling, are you the elder of the martial soul hall? No, Guanling replied with a smile. Xiao Ning Shu, you don't have to worry about who I am now. When the time is right, I will tell you. Oh, okay, Ning Shu nodded without further questioning. She lowered her head and looked at the token in her hand. Before she could think much, she was suddenly taken into the air by Guanling. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. The Martial Soul from 1 to 9. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. The Martial Soul from 1 to 9. Ning Shu was startled, and when she realized it, she was already in the air. Grandpa Guanling. She exclaimed, her whole body was lifted up by Guanling. Guanling grabbed her shoulders with both hands, which gave her no sense of security. It was like a vast abyss below, dark and bottomless. She felt dizzy and threatened to suffer from acrophobia. Help. I'm afraid of heights. Fear of heights. Guanling lowered her head and glanced at Ning Shu. He suddenly realized that his hands were trembling a bit. Are you so afraid of heights? Obviously, it was not Guanling who trembled, but the owner of the shoulder he was holding in his hand. I'm afraid of heights, so I'm so scared of heights. Ning Shu sometimes feels really helpless. She looks up in pain and doesn't dare to look down again. The wind whizzes in her ears, and she trembles all over, extremely scared. Seeing this, Guanling couldn't help feeling a bit embarrassed. He quickly flew towards the city of Soto and landed in an open place. I thought you were not afraid, he said, ouch. The rapid flight made Ning Shu's stomach churn like a raging river. As soon as she landed, she ran to the trash can and vomited. Guanling looked at her and swallowed the words on his lips. He felt for a moment that he was really not being kind. I forgot to ask. Guanling looked left and right, and saw a shop selling sugar water. He walked to the shop and bought a bowl of sugar water, ready to give it to Ning Shu to drink. Ning Shu vomited all the congee and cabbage she ate tonight. Looking at the trash in the trash can, she suddenly felt that what she ate was really bad. I raised my hand and wiped my mouth. At that moment, Guanling came over with sugar water and said, here. He handed the sugar water to Ning Shu, who took it and drank it directly. Ah, finally come back to life, thank you very much, Grandpa. She didn't forget to add a sentence. Guanling looked at her. The child is still very polite. Did you vomit clean? He raised his eyebrows and asked. Well, I vomited it up, Ning Shu replied, already calculating where to treat her stomach. Guanling turned around and chuckled lightly, since you vomited clean, let's go with me. I'll take you to have a good meal. Didn't you say the food in your college is poor? Coincidentally, I have plenty of time today. After taking you to have a good meal, I can take you to another place to play. So good. Ning Shu couldn't believe it. But her feet were very honest and quickly followed in Guanling's footsteps. Guanling took Ning Shu to a high-end restaurant. In the restaurant, the lights are overflowing, the music is gentle and melodious, and the atmosphere is warm and beautiful. Sitting by the window, Ning Shu looked down at the menu in her hand. Her cheeks are small and delicate, her nose is high and straight, her lips are red and teeth are white, and her long hair is casually draped over her shoulders. A gentle breeze blows, and a few strands of beautiful hair flutter. After finishing the meal she wanted proficiently, Guanling looked at Ning Shu. Ning Shu, who had calmed down, was also a beauty. Guanling didn't know what he was planning in his heart. He smiled and said, "Do you want to eat the same as me?" Ning Shu looked up and put down the menu. She smiled and said, okay. Then let's have 2 sets of meals, Guanling instructed the waiter. Okay, sir. The waiter put away the menu and then left. The gentle light fell, and Ning Shu curiously glanced at the restaurant. I have to say, this cheap grandpa is really rich, puff. Guanling just took a sip of water and for some reason, suddenly sprayed out. Ning Shu quickly reacted, dodged immediately, and handed a few pieces of paper to the person in front of her. Grandpa, don't be too anxious when drinking water, wipe it off, she said. Is this not an urgent matter? Guanling raised her eyes and gave Ning Shu a resentful look. He took the tissue handed by Ning Shu, wiped his mouth, and then wiped the table. Xiao Ning Shu, do you think there's anything wrong with me? No, Ning Shu replied. Why did Grandpa suddenly ask this question? She stared blankly at Guanling, not at all like the tone in her heart when she spoke. Just ask. Guanling didn't even want to expose her at this moment, he hasn't had enough fun yet. This little girl's movie may seem harmless to humans and animals on the surface, but it's actually a white lotus flower. In fact, she's very wild in her heart, and she really likes such a fun person. Oh, Ning Shu whispered and didn't say anything. The sky was getting darker and darker, and the ordered meals were slowly being served. Ning Shu ate calmly and didn't even remember what the task she had come out of today was, until, I'll go, Ning Shu, so you're here. A familiar voice sounded. Ning Shu turned her head, and the person who caught her eye was a chubby little man named Ma Hongjun. Mom, what about the bacteria? She still had a big mouthful of rice in her mouth, and her speech was extremely blurry. Mom, what kind of bacteria? What the hell? Guanling followed Ning Shu's gaze and saw a chubby young man with short red hair. Xiao Ning Shu, your friend? He asked. It's not a friend, it's a classmate. Ning Shu chewed the rice and swallowed it, thinking to herself, how did he find this? Do Soul has finished fighting. Soul fighting. Guanling narrowed her eyes and remained silent. After the soul battle, it should be time to go back. Ning Shu didn't immediately respond to Ma Hongjun, but turned her head and continued to eat her own food. She calmly explained to Guanling, Grandpa, I'm going back to the college later. The dean doesn't allow us to stay overnight outside, so I can't go play with you. It's okay, Guanling put down the spoon and said calmly, by the way, Xiao Ning Shu, I want to see your martial soul. How about I bring you a gift when we meet again next time? All right. Ning Shu responded with a mouthful. Ma Hongjun realized that he had been ignored and said, Ning Shu, we need to go back. Everyone is waiting for you. He shouted, while also looking at the young man sitting in front of Ning Shu. Who is that man? He muttered, why haven't you ever seen him before? Can't it be Ning Shu's boyfriend? No, she doesn't like him, does she? Ma Hongjun continued to look towards Ning Shu's side. I saw Ning Shu stand up and release her soul power. 9 silk-like pale purple powers appeared around her, and those silk-like powers wrapped around her right hand in circles. Finally, a small bell with a golden purple glow formed in the palm of her right hand. This little bell was shrouded in a phantom, and with a gentle movement, the phantom became another little bell. Ning Shu couldn't help but be surprised to see this. Immediately after, she moved again, and the phantom formed a third independent bell once again. Just keep moving like this until the 9th independent bell is formed, and the phantom disappears completely. I'll go, damn it. Ning Shu was surprised and couldn't help but mutter. 1 to 9, that's too much. Not only Ning Shu, but also Ma Hongjun was surprised to see this. He rubbed his eyes and couldn't believe the scene in front of him. Guanling remained calm. He touched his chin and pondered, virtual shadow 9 bells. End of this chapter. Is this the powerhouse of the martial soul hall in chapter 8? I really want to take it away. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Is this the powerhouse of the martial soul hall in chapter 8? I really want to take it away. Virtual shadow 9 bell. Ning Shu heard what Guanling said and looked at her with some confusion. Grandpa Guanling, I remember my martial soul wasn't like this before. Why did it suddenly change? Ning Shu thought to herself, is it because she took that leg-stretching eyeball pill? Legging and staring pills. What the hell? Guanling glanced at her and twisted her eyebrows. The soul power, shining with golden threads and flowing clouds, entwined around the 9 bells. If Guanling had guessed correctly, this power would have been the one he had been tracking for a long time but had inadvertently entered Ning Shu's body. Originally, Ning Shu's martial soul was just an ordinary bell, but because she took the heavenly materials and treasures, she evolved into the phantom shadow 9 bells, which is understandable. But this girl is also kind-hearted. She dares to eat anything and is not afraid of being stretched to death. The phantom shadow 9 bells evolved from ordinary bell martial souls. It has 9 different bells, each accompanied by 9 different basic soul skills. In addition, as it is a treasure-type martial soul, its soul skills are fixed. The longer the soul ring age, the stronger the increase in soul skill effects, which is the same concept as the 7 treasures glass pagoda martial souls. Guanling patiently explained, however, the void shadow 9 rings are not purely auxiliary martial souls. They can involve several other levels, but the specific 9 soul skills are not very clear to me. You need to understand this on your own. Oh, Ning Shu nodded vaguely, indicating that she understood. Thinking that Ma Hongjun was still staring at her over there, she didn't linger much. Grandpa Guanling, I'll go back to the college first, and we'll talk again next time. She put away the soul power she had just emitted, took a piece of bread from the table, and was ready to leave. Wait, Ning Shu. Guanling stopped her and threw a small ice blue arrow at her. This is a guiding arrow that I have condensed with my soul power. If you have anything to do, you can use my soul power to drive it directly. As long as I am not busy, I will rush to your side as soon as possible. The arrow in her hand shone with icy blue light, and a chill seeped into her skin. Ning Shu looked at the arrow and nodded happily. Grandpa, you're so kind. Guanling indulged in a smile and reached out to rub her head, saying, my whereabouts are not fixed. It's not easy for you to find me, Ning Shu. See you later. Well, thank you Grandpa. Ning Shu nodded and smiled happily. Wow, this is the powerhouse of the martial soul hall. It's so gentle, so likable, so eager to be carried away. Take it away. A hint of playfulness flashed through Guanling's eyes, but Ning Shu didn't care when she saw it. She waved her hand towards Guanling and then walked towards Ma Hongjun. Let's go, don't let the dean and his team wait for too long. Ning Shu's mood looked very good. Ma Hongjun regained his composure and his eyes widened. He turned around 3 times to look at Guanling, then at Ning Shu. He followed Ning Shu curiously and asked, "Ning Shu, who is that man? He looks quite good." "You don't know anyone," Ning Shu said with a smile on her face. Ma Hongjun looked at her. He had never seen Ning Shu smile so happily before. He frowned and said, "Of course I know I don't know, but don't you like me? Why did you move on so quickly?" "Ah." Ning Shu paused in her footsteps, frowning and turning her head. She looked up and down at Ma Hongjun like a ghost. "When did I like you? Did you think too much? Didn't you say that you will be my wife's in the future?" Ma Hongjun spoke confidently from the voice he heard during the day today. Ning Shu twitched at the corner of her mouth. This person may have hallucinations. "Stop it, I didn't say I like you, let alone that I want to be your wife. Everyone in the college knows that I like Brother Mu Bai. You're not blind, how can you tell that I like you?" "Ah. Don't like him. Did he misunderstand?" Ma Hongjun blinked. "Speaking of which, it has been some time since the freshmen entered the college, and they haven't had much contact with them because they need to suppress the evil fire. Did he really misunderstand?" Ma Hongjun looked at Ning Shu and she quickly said, "Although I don't know how you misunderstood, I really don't like you. It's better for us to keep a distance, otherwise Brother Mu Bai will definitely misunderstand when he sees it." Oh, Ma Hongjun looked a bit disappointed, but he didn't say anything. Ning Shu breathed a sigh of relief when she saw this. Fortunately, there's that scumbag wearing Mu Bai as a shield. It seems that this relationship still has some effect. What? Ma Hongjun was taken aback. What? She doesn't like wearing the boss. The restaurant is not very far from the Soto Arena, but after a 10-minute journey, Ning Shu and Ma Hongjun quickly arrived at the tea shop where everyone met with Fran. Ning Shu. Just as he walked 100 meters outside the tea shop, Fran's serious expression and tone appeared and spread to Ning Shu's eyes and ears. Ning Shu walked towards Fran and said, "Dean." "What did you do?" asked Fran coldly. "Everyone is working hard to complete the mission through soul fighting." "What did you do?" "I was hungry, so I went to eat something," Ning Shu answered truthfully, deliberately showing the lady's fearless aura, just like the original Ning Rong, who was straightforward and had no intention of admitting her mistake. After getting to know Guanling, Ning Shu became even more determined in her desire to join the martial soul hall. This time was an opportunity for her, and according to Fran's temperament in the original book, he couldn't bear her to take it for granted. When Fran got angry, she would retort and maybe she could set sail tonight. Ning Shu thought happily in her heart, "Hurry up, curse me, kick me out, and we'll just wait for your words." After listening, everyone selectively fell silent. Ning Shu, she's going crazy again. This is what Dai Mubai thought, and it is also what Franda thought. He looked at Ning Shu with a complex expression on his face, unable to understand why she just wanted to be kicked out, wanted to leave on his own, and couldn't drop out of school. "Do you insist on him rushing? Have a tendency towards masochism?" Frand pondered for a while and realized that the mental health of the students was also a concern for their teachers. Perhaps Ning Shu was treated unfairly during her time at the Seven Treasures and Glass sect, which led to this. After all, the letter written by Ning Fengji was from Miss Biao, who was also from the Seven Treasures Glass sect and did not mention it. "Well, it's okay if you go eat something when you're hungry, but Ning Shu, do you think you didn't do anything wrong about this today? One thing belongs to one thing, and Fran thinks he can be tolerant of Ning Shu, but this tolerance is only limited to reason." "I didn't do anything wrong." Ning Shu spoke confidently. "Although I don't know why Fran let go of her escape to eat, fortunately things are still moving in a positive direction." Ning Shu had a "I didn't do anything wrong" expression on her face, and Fran couldn't help but furrow his brows. He shouted, "Ning Shu! This is not the Seven Treasures Glass sect. It's not a place where you can act wild. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Ning Goupi Rong Gao Yao Rong. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Ning Goupi Rong Gao Yao Rong. Ning Shu was startled, and the others were the same. Dai Mubai wanted to come forward and plead, but as soon as he took a step, he was glared back by Frand. He turned his head and could only pretend that he had no such thoughts. The other 7 were the first to see Frand in such a big fire outside, and indeed, Ning Shu's temperament was strange not to be scolded. Dai Mubai shook his head and cast a sympathetic look at Ning Shu, thinking to himself, please seek more blessings, Ning Shu. Obviously, Ning Shu would not admit her mistake. Frand's reaction hit her right target. How could she not strike while the iron is hot? Dean, be more rigorous. I can't be wild in the Seven Treasures Glass sect. She deliberately spoke out and corrected Frand's words, with a nonchalant expression on her face that made people feel angry when they looked at her. Frand was furious and shouted angrily, Ning Shu. Hey, I'm here. Dean, please calm down first. If we have something to say, why don't we have to shout? I'll answer, if you keep yelling like this, your voice will be broken. Ning Shu said thoughtfully, waiter, please serve us Dean a bowl of tea and ask for the cheapest one. The 4 words, cheapest, are shocking. Puff. The crowd burst out laughing unkindly. As is well known, Frand is really stingy. Every time he comes here, he always wants a bowl of the cheapest tea to drink. He never expected that Ning Shu would dare to bring up this matter and make fun of him today. It's really like she won't expose the roof of the house for a whole day. Ning Shu, if you continue to be so disobedient to discipline, don't blame the dean for me to discipline you properly. Want to leave here, right? Dreaming. Frand said, from today on, you'll run circles with Oscar and the others, and then go soul fighting. If you can't finish it, Oscar. Here. Oscar raised his hand, feeling somewhat helpless. If nothing unexpected happened, he would have had bad luck again. Frand ordered, if Ning Shu can't finish it, neither you nor Ning Rong can rest. There's no need to fight soul battles anymore. When she finishes, you can rest and fight again. Oscar gave a bitter smile, and he knew it was him who was unlucky. 2 young ladies from the Seven Treasures Glass sect are standing on the stall. Their fate is really hard. Oscar had no objection to Frand's punishment, but it didn't mean that another person had no objection to this decision. As soon as Ning Rong heard that a disaster had struck his head in the end, he couldn't stand it anymore. No, why? Dean, this is unfair. Why? If she's your companion, is that enough? Frand was angry at the moment and didn't want to argue with Ning Rong. He said straightforwardly, if you think it's unfair, just leave here. It's not a big deal if you're one less than here. What? Ning Rong was wronged. Didn't she just say 1 sentence? Why are you so cruel to her? We still have to drive her out. That's too much. Rong. Oscar tried to pat Ning Rong on the shoulder to comfort her, but in the next moment, Ning Rong suddenly gave him a fierce look, which scared him to immediately retract his hand. Ning Rong seems to be blaming and not opposing. Oscar is also very helpless. What's the use of opposing the decision made by the dean? Opposing will only make things more complicated. Ning Shu was yelled at a few times, and she was confused. No, you should have said that to me, Dean. What's the use of getting angry at Ning Rong? She's a dog skin ointment and won't leave here. Oh, I want to leave, you should have said it to me. She roared a few times in her heart, and everyone looked at her with admiration, complexity, and resentment in their eyes, especially Ning Rong. If her gaze could kill someone, Ning Shu had already been completely dismembered by her. What kind of dog skin ointment? She's not a dog skin ointment. Mu Bai, take them back to the college. Fran dropped this sentence and the person flew away. In front of the tea shop, 8 people looked at each other speechless, and Ning Shu looked dejected. Plan B, failed. Ning Shu, if you want to leave, you can just leave on your own. Why do you have to drag us to suffer together? You're too selfish, right? After Fran left, the first person to speak out was Ning Rong, who had just felt a little aggrieved. She didn't like Ning Shu for a long time, and she didn't like her when she was in the sect. Besides, Ning Shu had already been expelled from the Seven Treasures Glass sect. Apart from having the same surname, they had nothing to do with each other. Who knew this guy would come to the same college as her and keep causing trouble for her? What a annoying guy. The plan failed, and Ning Shu felt depressed for a moment. She didn't have any extra time to argue with Ning Rong. She ignored Ning Rong's words and was thinking about what kind of opportunity she should find next time. It kept getting tough, and it didn't feel good. Ning Shu. Ning Rong was ignored and felt extremely unhappy. She wanted to come forward and argue with Ning Shu, but was stopped by Oscar. Alright Rong, it's not time to argue now. It's getting late, let's go back first. I don't want it. Ning Rong said in his spleen, she's going too far. Oscar reluctantly dissuaded, Rong, she's excessive, but the dean is right. She's our partner, we. Alright, isn't it just a small matter? Ning Shu will finish running and won't delay your rest. Seeing that Ning Rong was about to cause trouble without reason, Dai Mubai immediately spoke up to stop the incident from happening. But his stop surprised everyone a bit. Brother, isn't Dai Mubai the one who hates Ning Shu the most? Why are you still helping her talk today? Xiao Wu asked in a voice that only the two of them could hear beside Tang San, but her gaze remained fixed on Ning Shu. Tang San shook his head and said, perhaps this was just what Dai Lauda wanted Rong to stop arguing, not towards Ning Shu. Oh, Xiao Wu nodded without saying anything. Dai Mubai stepped forward, Oscar comforted, and Ning Rong couldn't continue to vent her anger. She snorted, turned her head, and saw the Seven Treasures Glass Pagoda in her hand. With a slight increase, she quickly left the tea shop. Rong. Wait for me. Oscar quickly caught up, afraid that something unexpected might happen to Ning Rong. Alright, let's go too, Dai Mubai said. He turned around and before he could leave, Ma Hongjun smiled and said, I won't go with you. Why, little chubby guy, where are you going? Xiao Wu tilted her head and looked at Ma Hongjun. Ma Hongjun chuckled and said, secret. Secret. Xiao Wu turned to look at Dai Mubai. Dai Mubai coughed lightly and didn't know what to say for a moment. Ma Hongjun walked up to Dai Mubai, patted his shoulder, and said lewdly, Dai boss, why don't we go together? Who wants to go with you? Dai Mubai glanced at Zhu Zhuqing and quickly opened Ma Hongjun's hand. Young master, my vision hasn't fallen to that level yet. Ma Hongjun smiled and said, yes, you just like those twins. You really don't like my older sisters. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. The plan from offending one person to offending a group of people. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. The plan from offending one person to offending a group of people twins. Everyone looked at Dai Mubai. Xiao Wu and Tang San seemed to know something, and their expressions looked noticeably different. Zhu Zhuqing, who had no presence on the side, suddenly emitted a chill all over her body. Ning Shu glanced at her but didn't say anything. On the other hand, Dai Mubai noticed that everyone's eyes were also grabbing Ma Hongjun, who gritted his teeth and said, what nonsense are you talking about? I'm telling the truth. Ma Hongjun put his arm around Dai Mubai's shoulder and said, Dai, don't you just don't like my older sisters? A few days ago, I saw you and those twins together being so affectionate. Dai Mubai gave Ma Hongjun a glare, but Ma Hongjun didn't understand what Dai Mubai meant. He said bluntly, Boss Dai, your eyes are twitching. Why is it so strange today? Don't you usually send me there? Why don't you want to send me today? Dai Mubai was somewhat speechless and helpless. He covered Ma Hongjuan's mouth and didn't want him to continue speaking. Later, he explained to Zhu Zhuqing, I didn't flirt with the twins, it was all fat people talking nonsense. What's it to me? Zhu Zhuqing said coldly, but it was obvious that she had emotions. Ning Shu looked at them, how could she remain silent in this scene? Before Dai Mubai could speak again, Ning Shu coquettishly tilted her head and said, yes, it's none of your business. Brother Mubai, why do you explain so much to her? I don't mind you sleeping with the twins, I'm willing to accept them. Hey, Zhu Zhuqing, hurry up and leave this to me. I'll take care of this scumbag for you. What? Zhu Zhuqing was taken aback. Dai Mubai turned his eyes and glared at Ning Shu. Ning Shu. Can you be normal? Xiao Wu and Tang San were eating melons on the side, and the two quietly retreated behind, unwilling to participate in their dispute. Ning Shu blinked and said innocently, I'm normal, brother Mubai. Are you doubting my sincerity towards you? I can tolerate those twins now. Can't you still see my sincerity? The situation became increasingly dark as Dai Mubai began to curse. He pointed at Ning Shu and angrily said, Ning Shu, shut up. If you don't speak, no one will treat you as mute. Being bullied by Dai Mubai, Ning Shu deliberately pretended to be aggrieved and said, Brother Mubai, how can you be bullied? As she finished speaking, she raised her eyes and turned her gaze to Zhu Zhuqing. Zhu Zhuqing, Brother Mubai kindly explained to you, and you still spoke coldly to him. You really don't know what to do. Quick. Zhu Zhuqing. Run. Hurry up and get angry. We can't give this scumbag any chance. He abandoned you once. Do you still want to give him a second chance? Abandoned. Ma Hongjun, Xiao Wu, and Tang San looked at Dai Mubai with theatrical expressions on their faces. So they already knew each other a long time ago. No wonder Dai Mubai always treats Zhu Zhuqing differently. It seems that they have formed a habit, and the few people watching the play believe in Ning Shu's voice. They shook their heads repeatedly, feeling in their hearts that Dai Mubai was really not kind, and at the same time, they cast sympathetic glances at Zhu Zhuqing. Zhu Zhuqing did not just shake her face and leave as Ning Shu had expected, but instead looked at her in surprise. Ning Shu paused for a moment, not understanding why Zhu Zhuqing was looking at her like this. But none of this was important. She withdrew her gaze and looked at Dai Mubai with the affectionate gaze of a dog. Dai Mubai didn't look at Ning Shu. He skipped Ning Shu and looked directly at Zhu Zhuqing. His face was complex, and his gaze became even more complex, as if there were some unspoken secrets. Zhu Zhuqing raised her eyes and exchanged a glance with Dai Mubai. Both of them could see different feelings in each other's eyes, but Dai Mubai's half-push and half-refuse attitude still made Zhu Zhuqing feel a bit uncomfortable. She suppressed her unwillingness, cold-faced, and slowly spat out two words. Disgusting. Hey hey. Well done. That's it. We're all independent and self-reliant women, how can we give up on ourselves for a scumbag? Sister supports you to be yourself, don't pay attention to him, he's just a big idiot. Ning Shu cheered in her heart. After listening, a strange expression flashed on Zhu Zhuqing's face, but it still didn't affect her face. Before leaving, Zhu Zhuqing seemed a bit unwilling. She suddenly turned back and cursed at Dai Mubai, you're just a big idiot. What? How do you learn from me? Ning Shu said. As soon as the words fell, the person disappeared into the darkness at the fastest speed. Zhu Zhuqing is a quick attack soul master, who is not comparable to ordinary people in terms of speed. However, for a moment, even his shadow disappeared. No, why am I so foolish? Dai Mubai looked at the direction of Zhu Zhuqing's departure with an innocent expression on his face. Upon seeing this, Ning Shu immediately took advantage of the hot iron and chased after her, saying, "Brother Mubai, don't pay attention to her, she just doesn't know what to do. You should hate me so much, I made Zhu Zhuqing misunderstand you. Quick! Go to the dean and accuse me, then kick me out." Ning Shu's plan has changed from offending one person to offending everyone. If Ning Shu in the past was simply uncooperative, then now she is deliberately seeking trouble for nothing. What she didn't know was that her thoughts had already been heard by everyone, and Dai Mubai didn't want to argue with her at all. In a sense, Ning Shu was also venting her anger for Zhu Zhuqing. It was a fact that he had abandoned his fiancée A.E. In this matter, what right did he have to scold Ning Shu? "Fatty guy, you can go by yourself today, I'll go back first." What Ning Shu didn't expect was that Dai Mubai ignored her directly. "Ah, good." Ma Hongjun responded without saying anything. Subsequently, Ning Shu watched helplessly as Dai Mubai left, without even a hint of wanting to scold her. Damn it! Ning Shu could not help but complain in her heart. Sigh. Seeing another plan fail, she couldn't help but let out a deep sigh. At this moment, Xiaowu, who was eating melons on the side, suddenly spoke up, "Little chubby, so you're going to do that? It's a secret, you're too sleazy." Now there are only 4 people left in the tea shop. Xiaowu, Tang San, Ma Hongjun, and Ning Shu. After watching the play of Dai Mubai and Zhu Zhuqing, it's Ma Hongjun's turn. Xiaowu jokingly said, not knowing what she was thinking. Ma Hongjun didn't care much about what he said to her. He nodded repeatedly in response and said, "Oh, yes, 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 I'm sleazy. Your third brother is as pure as ice. So what's wrong?" Xiaowu snorted and hugged her chest with both hands. "My third brother is Tang San Xiao, who is pure. The proud girl's voice reached Ning Shu's ear, and she felt a short circuit in her brain, causing her mouth to twitch. What the hell? Upon hearing this, Ma Hongjun also laughed heartily. He turned his head to look at Ning Shu and asked, as if seeking confirmation, "Ning Shu, what do you think?" "Ah." Ning Shu looked at the 3 of them and smiled awkwardly, yes, it's pure. What's so pure? A person who has lived for decades still pretends to be a child when their soul wears it here, shameless. And you, the 100,000-year-old soft-bone rabbit, foolishly love. They may have the idea of your soul ring and soul bone, so be happy when the pendant has you crying in the future. End of this chapter.